Hey guys, I'm David. I'm a downhill skateboarder based out of Minnesota. I am just bringing today a review of the Nike Blazers versus the Nike Jordans. So a little bit of background on this. I used to skate this shoe here. This is the Nike Alley-Oop. This is a, in my opinion, really solid low top shoe. It's got part suede, part mesh construction, or mesh or cloth. I really like this shoe, huge fan of how it did brake soles, and this one kind of really got me into getting in with Nike shoes. Unfortunately, they did not stop selling this shoe. This shoe is about $60, and basically I had a Nike gift card, so I decided to drop a bit of money on a set of Jordans and a set of Blazers. Basically Jordans I picked, they're a pretty iconic downhill shoe, and Blazers I picked because I heard some really great things about them from Owen Campbell. But I've been skating them for a couple of months. I've done some cruising, free ride. I haven't done some extremely fast downhill, but I've got a couple of thoughts on them. So my initial impressions of the shoe, overall the Blazers were kind of narrow on the foot. If you just take a look at the silhouette here from the front and from the top, you can tell that they're pretty narrow shoes. This was actually a pretty good thing because straight out of the box they held onto your foot really well. Your foot doesn't have a lot of slippage, and you can run a pretty simple lacing pattern on the front there. My initial impressions of the Jordans were actually not that... They were actually really good. They're comfortable to walk in, they're wide. The cuff on the ankle, or the cuff on this upper here, is actually really supportive, and I was a big fan of how the lacing, how well the lacing worked. I also feel like I was able to bend the shoe a little bit better. And they weren't quite as restrictive. I then applied brake soles, ordered and applied brake soles to both of them. As you can see, I'm using a 3/16 inch SBR rubber sole from McMaster Carr. That's the standard brake sole that I personally find works best for me. Whatever brake sole you choose probably is going to perform as well, if not better. I found that setting up the Jordans took a bit more work. There was some traction nubs on the front of near the toe. Those had to be either razor bladed off or sanded down. As to the Blazers, I found that these actually took brake soles really, really well. The sole's really flat, and or at least on the bottom it's really flat, so it just takes that glue really nicely. Yeah. Once I'd had those brake soles on there, I started skating them a bit harder, and I started to notice a couple of issues actually with the Jordans. One of the main issues that I noted was that my Jordans, I'd actually start to get some blisters and irritation on the heel of my pushing foot. For me, that was my right foot. I had to do a little bit of tweaking of how I laced them, specifically to concentrate a lot more force, constricting my foot back into the shoe. Basically what would happen is I would go to bend my foot and the heel would lift. So I had to actually change up the lacing pattern with that. One of my homies actually turned me on to the idea of messing with lacing patterns, and I find that for a skate shoe, I think that's really a good idea. Specifically because the needs of both shoes are actually a little bit different, provided that you're not doing a whole lot of, skating switch and stuff like that. For me, I find that my back foot I need to have really anchored down, and the actual toe box I can keep a little bit looser. However, on my lead foot, right, so this would be my left foot, this is the one that interfaces on the front of the board, interfaces it does my pivoting, and I want this one to just be generally tighter overall. In this aspect, I don't care as much about my foot being constricted sideways. And of course the ankle may be a little looser than on my back foot. So you can of course tweak your lacing patterns to fit those. Overall, just some general pros and cons of this. For the Blazers, one of the big pros is the really nice, tall, kind of outsole here. It looks pretty thick, it's durable, there's no exposed stitching. This is going to allow it to interface with really tall foot stops. Not even with brake soles, it's already taller than the toe on the Jordans. Like, it's more vertical before being rounded over the top. Compared to the Jordans, it's a lot more of an oval shape coming over the top of that there. So this would interface really well with foot stops that are vertical. Things like a bushing, things like maybe the Riptide slab if it's extra tall, but that is going to be something you're going to need to think about if you choose to skate Blazers. Your foot stop is if it goes over the top of your shoe, or it kind of cups the side here, so like your Scythe V1s, what are those Scythe foot stops called? Yeah, but some Scythe foot stops may not be the best fit if they're trying to go over the top of the shoe. Let's see. Another con, this collar and the upper is a little bit less supportive in my opinion. It's just kind of 2 layers of material and there's not that much padding. If that's something you really care about, maybe these aren't the right shoes for you. Additionally, another con, if you're like me and you have kind of wide feet, if you know that that's going to be an issue for you, having your foot a little compressed, maybe don't go with Blazers. They are narrower, and your foot has a little bit less room to kind of spread out in the shoe. However, if you like that type of fit, if you like feeling kind of held in, if you like the feeling of cup soles almost, this might be the right choice for you. On to the Jordans. First off, let's start with the pros. First off, as I mentioned before, padded collar, really nice. I also, when I first got these shoes, I was working on my stand-up toes, so I was doing a lot of bending this here, right? And kind of trying to get good board feel on that toe side edge with my back foot. I found that these actually really boosted the amount of feel I had on that toe side edge, so I think that these actually win out over the Blazers in terms of board feel. That being said, higher board feel means they're thinner, but that can be remedied a little bit with brake soles. Another pro, if you're running foot stops like the slab, like the Riptide slab, which is super common now, some Scythe foot stops, those will interface really well with the top of your foot here. Additionally, if you've got wider feet, this could be a slightly better shoe. It also comes out of the box, in my opinion, a little more flexible in the toe. Onto the cons. I had a lot of issues getting this shoe to not give me blisters. For that, I just had to make sure the lacing pattern was right. And actually, so that I needed this top collar to really engage with my ankle and prevent my back foot from lifting as I push. That was the main issue that I had. Front foot, no problems. Another con, in my opinion, the build quality and the leather on this is slightly less durable. I've got a couple of scuffs on these already. I don't care. This is my skate shoe. It's a tool. Some of the stitching, in my opinion, is a little bit less well protected than on the Blazer here. With the Blazer, a lot of the stitching is like recessed a little bit. to prevent, like, if you slide on your shoe and it like goes toe down, and you know, you will start to slowly damage the stitching on your Jordans, which could then lead to panels coming off or tearing. Another thought related to the leather, another con of the Jordans, is, in my opinion, the leather on the Jordans is a little bit thinner. This is probably why they feel a little better and a little more bendy straight out of the box, but that's just something to consider if you're wondering about, like, crashing fast and how that'll potentially damage the shoe, or how well the shoe will protect you in the event of a crash. Another major con on Jordans is just kind of the availability. These are a very sought after shoe, not this model specifically, but this is a sneakerhead shoe. Blazers are not as much of a sneakerhead shoe from what I've seen. I could be wrong. I'm not a sneakerhead. I just bought these to skate. I do not care, right? This does have some pros. For example, if you've got a really uncommon foot size, or if you just don't care about the color. I cared a little bit about the color. I wanted it to match other things that I have. But the availability with Jordans can be a slight issue. So overall, I think they're both really solid shoes. My personal favorite right now is the Jordans, just because of how they support my ankle. But honestly, both are really good shoes. Once again, if you're going to buy them, my end takeaway would be, if you've got wide feet, if you like board feel, go for Jordans. If you've got a little bit narrower feet, or you like having your feet be squeezed, go with Blazers. At the end of the day, it's mostly about personal preference and even style, right? So, make of that what you will. And yeah, have a nice one.